And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Roy Rehill's our guest. We're talking about his books. Adirondack Adventures is one of them, and a lot of information about French Louis Seymour in this book. For those who don't know who he was, who was he?
Well, the second half of the book is about French Louis. French Louis was just one of those characters, Adirondack hermit, who did it all. He started out as a woodsman, and he worked in the logging camps up near Speculator, and then little by little he kept moving further out. He had a place at Pillsbury Lake, and then finally he had a place at West Lake in the West Canada, is one of the most remote wilderness areas in the Adirondacks, where he lived, and he guided for people that came to visit. But he became a hermit, and he had a friend, a young friend named Shroom Haskell, which Haskell Road is named after, that runs along, that used to be the old tote trail for the logging camps, that runs along the upper West Canada Creek from Route 8. And the original trail was also part of the old military trail, if you go way back to the old maps, to the Revolutionary times. But those trails went all the way up through the West Canadas. But quite a remote place, and Harvey Dunham. The book is almost not as much about French Louis as it uses French Louis to capture the events and the workings of the settlers there in the early Adirondacks. So it's really an informal history of everything north of Route 8 around Louis's life.
And the book is still for sale. In fact, it's up at it's on your website, which is what?
theforagerpress.com, all one word, and also we have a site called Adirondack-books.com.
And it's also for sale up at, as all Adirondack books are, up at the Old Forge hardware store.
Right, so if you meander up to Old Forge, you'll see our books on the shelves.
They've got a great bookstore up there.
It's really tremendous, yeah. I never leave there without something new.
I know, me too. Another of your books that you did with Jay O'Hearn is Under an Adirondack Influence, the life of A.L. Byron Curtis.
A.L. Byron Curtis.
Who is Mr. Curtis?
Well, Byron Curtis wrote an interesting book, which is what attracted us to him in the first place, called Nat Foster, Hunter and Trapper of the Adirondacks. And he wrote that in 1897. He was an Episcopal minister. He graduated from Syracuse University in 1891 or 1892, and they assigned him to Forestport, which in 1892 was pretty desolate.
Pretty wilderness, wasn't it?
But he absolutely loved it. He loved the place, he loved the people, and he wrote Nat Foster while he was there. He also wrote about his adventures. He befriended a local doctor, and he would go around with the doctor on calls to help out, sometimes when somebody passed away or was going to pass away. But he writes pretty extensively about those adventures with the doctor, and candidly and funny, a great writer, and his life was quite interesting. So there's some of the book is his own writings. Actually, a good part of the book is actually written by A.L. Byron Curtis. We just captured it and then wrapped around his own history around his own writings.
His day job was as a minister.
He was an Episcopal minister, and he ended up, there was a connection between he and Harvey Dunham, because Harvey Dunham's uncle, I believe he preceded Byron Curtis as the minister of the Episcopal Church that Byron Curtis was the pastor of in Forestport. So they were friends, and then they brought young Dunham up to his Nat Foster Lodge on North Lake. So you start to wonder, well, was the first place that Harvey Dunham heard about any stories about French Louis from Byron Curtis himself around the open fire? Mm-hmm. And we find stories in Byron Curtis's journals of over the years, Harv and his brother, and then later Harv and Bob Gillespie coming to visit Byron Curtis. So there's a funny interweaving of these men who lived on, their camps were on either side, of the watershed. The West Canada Creek watershed goes down to Herkimer, down to the Mohawk. North Lake goes to the Black River, turns north and goes up to Lake Ontario. So that's the top of the watershed.
Right. Didn't your family, or does your family have something on the creek as
We
well?
do. I was a member of a hunting camp that's 18 miles back from Route 8 for many years. And over the years, I kept talking to people that have a beautiful log cabin along West Canada Creek. And finally, when they decided to sell, I guess I had told them enough times, if you ever sell this, you have to
Yeah.
let me know, and they
Yeah.
did. Our place overlooks the Seabury Stillwater.
Mhm. I assume you're still a member, maybe even president, but I noticed a sticker on your car
Yeah.
out in the parking lot for the search and rescue. I forget the proper name.
Central Adirondack Search and Rescue Team.
Yeah.
And the team started in about 2002 by a person who was a good friend of mine who was a guide, because he was a guide out of Inlet. Greg OHara is with a long history there of his family. But he started it because several people had gotten lost. And he thought that there was a need for it. I saw an advertisement that they wanted people, and just to get my wood skills up in 2003, I called and said, I don't live there, but can I join?
Mhm.
And he said, well, if you're willing to come up to train in an inlet, you can. Well, I'm still a member, and for many years I was president of the team. I'm still active as a membership.
With technology, Roy, that has to have helped so much in that line of work, trying to save people, huh?
Yeah, but if you notice, even trying to come up this big hill, the cell coverage doesn't always quite
Yeah.
work if you haven't been here before and you're using the GPS on your phone to get here.
Right.
All of a sudden, you might make a wrong turn. You have to know how to read a map and use a compass properly. And not enough people take care to know those skills when they go in the woods anymore, and that's why the rangers have to do so many rescues.
The Forager Press has also done a book on another hermit, and this is Jay O'Hearn's book, and Noah John Rondeau. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Noah John Rondeau.
Rondeau. And boy, I'll tell you, if there has been a lot of interest in one person in the Adirondacks, it's been him. There's been such interest in him.
Well, he was the original Adirondack hermit, and of course he came out and even did shows for the DEC
Yeah.
later in his life, and he worked as Santa Claus for a while at the North Pole.
Yeah, I got to talk to you about that in just a second. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Roy Rehill. Short break, right back.